It's no secret to anyone aware of my history with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game that the archetypes I invest my time into are those which lack the typical trappings of a top-tier strategy.
See, he's saying that, but the archetypes he invests his time into is exactly 3 archetypes. It's these 3. Like an Earth machine, I guess. All right, so first and foremost, this is a good-ass video. I've already seen the video. I just think it's really well written and well done, so let's explore it together.
They tend to have inherent design flaws that I spend more time looking past while I remain more invested in the deck's flavor or themes or unique gameplay. After many years of playing these lower-powered and underexplored decks, I want to take a look back at these archetypes and discuss what could have been different. I want to point out where the design went wrong and repair the foundation, isolate what the flaws in these overbalanced decks are, and redesign them from the ground up, speculating on what these decks could have looked like with some more fine-tuning, rather than dream about a whole new piece of legacy support.
War Rock Club. Wow, he's got some cool stuff in the back there. Yeah, hell yeah. Alestrals.
I'll be patching them, basically. My goal is not to make my favorite bad decks tiers.
Why is this idiot holding his mic? He doesn't know the meta. Parfa doesn't know the meta. The meta right now is to take a shitty lav mic and just hold it up to your mouth for the whole video.
0 or remove their identity and make them something they're not. Also, I want to be clear that I am working off the benefit of hindsight. I'm not a card designer. The critic's advantage is we know that these cards are bad based off of their lifespan, containing no or very little competitive success. I can only imagine the Sisyphean nightmare that it is to release
Sisyphean.
a new archetype into a landscape of 10,000 or so cards and not accidentally forge a format warping nuclear bomb. This series is simply looking at why these cards struggled in their competitive landscape and imagining a world where it could have been different. And what better deck to start with on this channel than the albatross around my neck, Tistina. There's no possible way you design this deck so piss-ass bad without just letting an AI generate the effects. It doesn't make sense. To start, I promise I'm going to talk about other decks on this channel, and frankly, I should just apologize for my obsession at this point. But if we're going to be talking about decks that have inherent flaws in their design, there's really no better lineup of cards to discuss as the catalyst of the series of videos. The Tistina cards are so confused. There's no coherence in their effects. Some provide no benefit to the archetype. Others have effects which are represented nowhere else in the series of cards. And some are even an active detriment to the game plan that you would assume the deck is trying to facilitate.
These are the cards that are more at odds with each other than maybe any other archetype on the planet. And unfortunately, I think this is going to set the first episode of this series way higher than it needs to be.
Of coherence was so bad that a small number of people that were interested in these cards couldn't even come up with a consensus on if you were supposed to be going first or going second with the deck. These people were debating what the core design philosophy of this deck was even supposed to be. Putting that aside, it's clear we're going to need to do a lot of red penning on these cards if we're really going to fix them.
It's so fucking funny that people were like the Tistina Discord was like, no, it's blind second. How do I know? Well, all the cards are ass, so you can supplement them with board breakers.
With all that preamble out of the way, let's get into the patch notes. Let's go ahead and start by looking at Tistina's first wave. Demigod of the Tistina is a light level 10 aqua monster with 2,000 attack and 0 defense, which reads, if you control a Tistina card, you can special summon this card from your hand, then you can add 1 Tistina spell trap from your deck to your hand. During your opponent's turn, if you control Crystal God Tistina, quick effect, you can change as many monsters your opponent controls as possible to face down defense position, then you can send all face-up cards your opponent controls to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Demigod of the Tistina once per turn. This is a really strong start. A level 10 that summons itself and searches for a spell trap of its archetype as long as you control one of the archetypal cards on field, all while not applying any restrictions, is great. Since the search and summon all activate in the hand, while it is susceptible to Ash, it makes up for it by not being hit by cards like Imperm or Veiler or Mourner. But even outside of the summon and search, it has a disruption effect, which is very powerful if you do get to set it up. Daruma Karma Cannon, nothing to sneeze at. And this effect has the added benefit of sending face-up cards, not just face-up monsters, so spell traps are susceptible to this card's interruption effect as well. Before I discuss any changes to this card, we should look at the monster mentioned in Demigod's text, Crystal God Tistina. Level 10 light aqua with 2...
This card is so funny, man. I can't believe this card exists in this state. It's just comical. There's no other word for it. It is comedy that this card was released the way it is.
1,000 attack and 3,000 defense that reads, during your main phase, you can change as many monsters your opponent controls as possible to face down defense position. Then you can send all face-up cards your opponent controls to the graveyard. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can change as many monsters your opponent controls as possible to face down defense position. Then you can send all face-up cards your opponent controls to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Crystal God Tistina once per turn. So we got a theme here, right? Both of these monsters are the payoff for choosing to play the Tistina deck, each sporting a Karma Cannon style effect but with different spell speed. I want to do a bit of cut and pasting on these cards though. Demigod serves as an archetypal extender, but it's the one with the interruption version of the Karma Cannon effect, where the
Yeah, what if the extender was the one that you wanted to keep on the field?
Hard to summon boss monster has the ignition effect. This requires you, as the Tistina player, to keep your extender on board, not using it for any Link or Xyz plays, whilst also investing resources into getting Crystal God on board,
whilst
alongside the Demigod. In my time with playing this deck, it's actually kind of rare that you're using Demigod as an interruption, and I think that's a big shame. It's clear that this was meant to be a core design element of the deck, but with the way that the text is now, you're barely able to make that interruption live. So let's move the quick effect text off of Demigod and onto Crystal God. This means that Crystal God being on board by itself is now an interruption. Demigod now has the ignition effect to Karma Cannon if the Crystal God has already been summoned. This change smooths out this issue, as you're not giving up an interruption by using Demigod as an extender for like a Link or a Varudris or something like that. And the Crystal God on its own can still be the interruption once you do the hard work of getting it on board. Next up, we got Sentinel of the Tistina. Sentinel's a level 3.
Oh, so the theater kid hates a flavorful lexicon. Rebecca, I don't want to talk to you about the word whilst. You are the #1 utilizer of the word whilst. You love using it.
Wind Aqua with 1200 attack and 1400 defense that says, if this card is in your hand or graveyard and you control a light Tistina monster, you can special summon this card. You can target one Tistina monster or one face down card you control, destroy it,
it's
then
a good
add
word.
one Tistina card from your deck to your
Rebecca's
hand.
the wordler.
So this is another promising card. A searcher for any Tistina card seems like a pretty reliable starter. Heck, it can even search another copy of itself. That's pretty cool. Furthermore, it has an extension effect that if you control one of the various boss monsters of the strategy, you can summon it. Nice. Now, if you'll notice by my tone, there's kind of an upcoming shift in opinion here. See, Sentinel is the poster child for the clunkiness and bizarre design of the Tistina cards. You would probably assume that there's another Tistina card that provides some type of effect when it's destroyed by a card effect. I will now present to you the Tistina card that I am alluding to. There isn't one. Sentinel...
Wait, that shit was funny.
must destroy a card in order to search, yet there is not a single card in the Tistina archetype that provides a beneficial effect when destroyed by one of your own cards.
Isn't that really funny? Dude, oh, this archetype was developed in a butt by shit. It's not shit from a butt. It never stood a chance.
This is maddening to me. If you were to normal summon Sentinel, use its effect to pop itself in search, there is not a single card that you could add that would allow you to continue playing. You couldn't add Demigod. The face of Tistina card just left the board because it destroyed itself. You couldn't add the field spell because, at the time, sending a Tistina name didn't accomplish anything here. Theoretically, you could add Breath, but this only works as a proper extension tool if you have another normal summonable Tistina name to be able to normal summon and set with Breath. And even if you did do that, you've now used
both of your normal summons afforded to you by the archetype, so you wouldn't be able to tribute summon the Crystal God to have it on board with the Demigod, which is the deck's main interruption that it was designed around.
Now, even with all this stated, the fact that Sentinel destroys cards to search is a unique bit of design. Popping set cards allows for way too many cute synergies, and anybody that knows me when deck building knows that I love cute synergies. I will, however, change the effect text from popping a face of Tistina monster to a face of Tistina card for reasons we'll get to later. Even with all the complaints that I made about Sentinel, this is still a card that has an effect to advance the deck's gameplay. The rest of the lineup of main deck monsters is so underwhelming and frustrating that I cannot believe that these cards were introduced in Duelist Nexus. Sharvara was released in Duelist Nexus. E-Pearly Noir and Emergency was in Duelist.
It's so funny to think about these cards in this context.
Nexus. Anyway, let's move on to Hound of the Tistina, a level 4 Earth Aqua, 1800 attack, 700 defense, which reads, if this card is in your hand or graveyard and you control a light Tistina monster, you can special summon this card. You can only use this effect of Hound of the Tistina once per turn. Tistina monsters you control can attack directly while your opponent controls a face-down defense position monster. Like, genuinely, what am I supposed to say about this, right? It's a direct attacking effect printed on a card in the same set as Mirror Sword Knight. I get the theme here. Hound is supposed to be the aggressor, the attack dog of the Tistina, right? And the direct attacking effect isn't necessarily bad in the context of how the deck plays out. Also, it being a second extender allows it to be a viable send off the field spell, so it can summon itself to be another tribute material for Crystal God. But, like, come on. There wasn't even a way for this deck to amass 8,000 damage with Tistina monsters attacking directly at the time of this card's release. Frankly, this card just needs to have an additional effect added to it. So let's add the effect to add back a Tistina card from graveyard on summon. Seeing as how graveyard recursion is something actually really lacking within this archetype, this would also give it some synergy with the field spell. Like, if you open Hound plus the field spell, you could send something like Demigod, then normal Hound, which would allow you to add back the Demigod to continue extending. You'd even be able to get back Tistina spell traps, which still, at time of writing, even with all this deck's waves of support, it still doesn't have the ability to do that. That's it for the monsters in the first wave of the archetype. 2 Bricky Engine requirements, and 2 cards that cannot start combos on their own. Disastrous. We do have some spell traps to talk about at least, so let's just get these out of the way. We should start with the field spell, because that's going to contextualize part of this deck's identity crisis. Divine Domain Batistina reads, during your...
This is the funniest one because it is a good card, but I mean, he explains it, but it does exemplify how fucking at odds with itself this deck is.
Your main phase, you can send one Tistina monster from your deck to your graveyard. Then if your opponent controls 3 or more face-up cards, you can special summon one Crystal God Tistina from your hand or deck. You can only use this effect of Divine Domain Bat Tistina once per turn. If this card in your field zone is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon one Tistina monster from your deck or graveyard. I hope after reading this card, you'll start to understand where people were getting a sense of promise from this archetype. A field spell that Foolish Burial's a monster as an ignition effect once per turn is not something to ignore. And this field spell doesn't even have like a cost to do that. Other decks would kill to have a card like this in their lineup, let alone a Foolish Burial that has the opportunity to summon like a big boss monster from the deck and disincentivizes your opponent from destroying it. But alas, a Foolish Burial is only as good as the monsters you can send with it. And the only justification here was sending something like Sentinel or Hound if you already had access to Demigod. Because this field spell is the only enabler for cheating out the Crystal God, some people made the assessment that this deck was meant to be a blind second strategy, allowing your opponent to set up a board, which you would then use the field spell to summon Crystal God into and immediately threaten that Karma Cannon effect. I'm not sure if this is a wrong way to view the deck, but if we were to evaluate it as such, then it's just terrible, right? Your opponent needing 3 or more face-up cards in order to special summon Crystal God is certainly not a guarantee, and it incentivizes you as a player to let your opponent play as much as possible, which means you need to shy away from hand traps since you want your opponent to be setting up a board. Therefore, your hope is to draw the correct combination of board breakers and engine, since you need your opponents to play, but since we're getting full comboed every game, and the engine isn't strong enough to deal with established threats on its own, we shoehorn ourselves into needing that specific board breaker style non-engine that can't remove something from the board like a Regeki would. It has to be like Droplet or something. And as stated multiple times before, the deck can't OTK. It's like a disaster, like a train wreck. I'm serious. With my host of complaints about this card, this is the one I'm going to avoid patching a lot, as the newest piece of Tistina support in Duelist Advance resolves almost all my issues with the field spell. The one change I want to make to Divine Domain Bat Tistina, instead of just summoning Crystal God from hand or deck, I want it to be able to summon from the graveyard as well. I criticize people for evaluating this deck as a blind second deck, at least a little bit, but I really can't blame them. This card summons a level 10 that has an ignition effect Karma Cannon, and that monster also does the Karma Cannon anyway when it's destroyed. Like, that is a good board breaker. But the fact that the Crystal God can just make its way to the graveyard and then the field spell's just never able to get it out again makes it so much worse than it needs to be. Now I'm going to do a quick deviation from the timeline here because I brought up a Miasma Dragon Tistina like 2 or 3 times at this point. It is the newest one, so I'm certainly going away from chronological order here, but I want to talk about it. Miasma Dragon Tistina. It's a level 10 Dark Aqua with 2000 attack and 0 defense, and reads, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Tistina monster from your deck to your hand, except Miasma Dragon Tistina. Also, for the rest of this turn, light Tistina monsters you control gain 1000 attack. If this card is sent to the graveyard and a card is in the field zone, you can special summon this card. Also, you cannot special summon from the hand or graveyard for the rest of this turn, except Tistina monsters. You can only use each effect of Miasma Dragon Tistina once per turn. It's like criminal that we didn't get this card until Duelist Advance. Miasma Dragon is what you'll be sending off the field spell on your first turn, which will allow it to trigger in the graveyard to summon itself, and then it triggers again on summon to search for a Tistina monster. This could be Demigod or Sentinel, whatever you needed depending on the hand. This card allows for all copies of this field spell to be 1-card starters. Back to the first wave, and the next of the lineup of spells is Breath of the Tistina, a continuous spell. It says, during your main phase, you can normal summon one Tistina monster in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. You can target one face-up monster you control, or if you control a light.
Meanwhile, the Ashen support is interesting because it would be a really good one for this series.
Tistina monster, you can target one face-up monster on the field instead, change that monster to face-down defense position, then add one Tistina card from your deck to your hand, except Breath of the Tistina. You can only use this effect of Breath of the Tistina once per turn. Okay, so I can see the vision here. A design trend that I like to see in archetypes is cards which are good going first, but better going second. Cards like Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous or Battle and Boxer Promoter are great play starters for their archetypes, but are even more threatening when you're playing into an established board because they can special summon themselves. Now, you would think Breath falls within this category of cards. However, Breath has the same unfortunate design flaw of the rest of the archetype up to this point because it doesn't do anything by itself. Breath is a consistency tool that requires you to put a monster on board for its search, sets the monster you summon so you can't use it as link material after that resolves, needs to set its target in order to resolve properly, and you don't want to play multiple copies of it as seeing more than one throughout a game provides you with no active benefit since its on-field effects are hard once per turns.
I'm going to let the dog out real quick.
So, total rework needed. This card is actually like awful. Let's change the effect to the following. During your main phase, you can normal summon one Tistina monster in addition to your normal summon or set. I still like this effect. It means we have extra tributes afforded to us to be able to get the Crystal God on board. So fine. Once per turn, if you control a light Tistina monster, you can target a monster on the field, change it to face down defense position. When this card is activated, you can add one level 4 or lower Tistina monster from your deck to your hand. You can only activate one Breath of the Tistina per turn. So, this rework retains some of the original ideas on this card while allowing it to serve as an actual consistency tool. This also allows multiple copies of Breath on board to each individually activate their effects to set over the period of a game as you activate more copies of them, giving the deck a growing threat the longer the game goes on, which is kind of the point of the archetype. It's like the crystal is oncoming, you know, so I think it works.
It's crystallizing, right?
Really well. The last card in the first wave of Tistina support was a continuous trap, and I genuinely believe.
What the fuck is he gonna do with signs of the Tistina? I mean, look at this one.
I believe this is like tied for the worst card in the archetype. Signs of the Tistina reads, activate this card by targeting one face-up monster on the field, special summon this card as an effect monster, Aqua, Light, level 10, attack 0, defense 0, with the following effect. This card is also still a trap. During your opponent's turn, when that target leaves the field, destroy this card. During your opponent's turn, when this card leaves the field, destroy that target.
Why?
think the idea here was to have extra ways to get light Tistinas on board so that you could follow up by summoning your Sentinel and Hound out of the graveyard, but you can't even just summon it as a trap monster. It has to target something on board in order to summon itself. So what does it do? Block an opponent's attack? Seriously? Is that what they wanted you to do with this card? Let's just scrap this thing and start over. Let's just change this to special summon this card as an effect monster. Aqua, light, level 10, attack 0, defense 0. With the following effect, this card is also still a trap. During your opponent's turn, quick effect, immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon one Tistina monsters using monsters you control as a material, including this card. Xyz
Okay, this is like a completely different card, but it is now interesting.
summon monster using this card as a material gains this effect. Once per turn, quick effect, target one monster your opponent controls, change it to face down defense position. This allows the card to actually do something as an interruption in theme while keeping the flavor of being an extra body on board for follow-up. And yes, this does have an effect to Xyz summon a Tistina monster. One of the cards that they got in their waves of support was a rank 10 Xyz monster, which I will explain soon. And that was it for the first wave. A mess of confused card effects, but the bones of a potentially decent strategy if some of the positive attributes of these cards were expanded upon. But there's no need to belabor this point. We all know what's coming. The second wave of Tistina cards even further split the archetype's directions into a web of effects that does nothing to solidify its design. In order for some of the archetypal pieces in the second wave of support to make sense, I need to talk about the extra deck monster that was released in the second.
This part of the video like got me so angry I had to stop my car and like...
Tistina, the Divinity that defies darkness, is a rank 10 light aqua Xyz with 2,000 attack and 3,000 defense. It requires 2 level 10 monsters and reads as follows. If this card is special summoned, you can send all face down cards your opponent controls to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Tistina, the Divinity that defies darkness, once per turn. Once per turn, if this card has Crystal God Tistina as material, you can detach one material from this card. It gains 2,000 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. If this card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card while it has material, you can special summon one Tistina monster from your graveyard. How dare you make a card with the coolest name ever so
the Divinity that defies darkness.
Bad. The Divinity that defies darkness, bro. That's fucking awesome. And you made it dog shit. This is supposed to be the payoff and game ender of the Tistina strategy. An Xyz monster that wipes all cards you previously set with Crystal God, Demigod, or Breath that allows you to swing for a massive 4,000 damage hit. I have some issues with this design though. Firstly, the field wipe effect seems rather redundant, right? As long as there was a single face down monster on the opponent's side of the field, all Tistina monsters could attack directly anyway. So this isn't a removal effect that's really needed all that much. And this floating effect is just astoundingly bad, right? Yet another card in the archetype that triggers only when the opponent destroys it, by the way. No protection from outside of this to solidify your game push. It doesn't work with Sentinel. The attack gaining effect isn't permanent. It's
and it only floats if it dies while it has material.
So strange to me. Like, why bother giving this card a bizarre...
Like, you could, like, fucking Zealantis this dickhead away.
Or floating effect if it isn't meant to be something that you make on your first turn, right? It's the game ender. It's not something you'd sit on as an interruption. There are cards later in the archetype which seem to push you in the direction of making this monster on your first turn, but it doesn't do anything to justify it being on board to do some sort of protect the castle game plan. Also, this card isn't a castle. It doesn't protect itself. Also, the board wiping effect lends itself to more moments of frustration when trying to push for game. Sure, this card wipes all the opponent's face down back row as well, but you aren't able to be selective about what cards get sent via this card's effect. This frequently puts you in a situation where you're actively sending something that is a detriment to do. Like, you don't want to get rid of it on board. A strange happenstance that Myers TCG exclusive decks is their release into a competitive environment which is hostile to their game plan. Did you notice the attributes of the boss monster in this deck? See, Tistina came out during the Dune format with its second wave in Age of Overlord, and the competitive environment at this time was chock full of bestial monsters, a powerful dragon archetype that banishes light or dark monsters from either player's grave. Bestial Druisworm has the effect to send an opponent's special summon monster if it is sent to the graveyard. So, if you were able to establish Crystal God, set all of your opponent's monsters, then wanted to clear the rest of the opponent's field to go for game with Divinity, you couldn't, because Druisworm could probably be there. It would trigger to send the Divinity, and Divinity only floats if it's destroyed. I should also point out that Divinity was released...
It's so funny, dude. I'm sorry. It's just so funny.
In the same set as SP Little Knight. So every single deck in the game now had access to non-destruction removal. In all my time playing this deck, online on stream, at various tournaments in paper, Master Duel when it was released, I've resolved Divinity's effects to float twice. This is not an exaggeration. It's red pen time. Divinity's text is now going to read 2 level 10 monsters. If this card is special summoned, you can choose any number of face-down cards your opponent controls, send them to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Tistina, the Divinity that defies darkness, once per turn. Once per turn, if this card has Crystal God Tistina as a material, you can detach one material from this card. It gains 2,000 attack. This is permanent. If this card you control leaves the field by another card's effect while it has material, you can special summon one Tistina monster from your hand, deck, graveyard, or banishment. Look, I am tired of there not being anything in the archetype that benefits from Sentinel's destruction. An Xyz monster floating into anything in the archetype from anywhere is a completely fine payoff, in my opinion. For the main deck monsters of the second wave, we have Fallen of the Tistina, a level 1 water aqua that reads, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, place 1 Divine Domain Tistina from your deck face up in your field zone. If a face up Tistina spell trap you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can banish this card, special summon 1 light Tistina monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. You can only use each effect of Fallen of the Tistina once per turn. Thank God we have 3 more copies of the field spell that did absolutely nothing at the time. This card is fine, I guess, but it further frustrates me that it's another example of a card that gets a beneficial effect after your opponent destroys a Tistina spell trap. The deck already relies on specific boards from your opponent. Why further lean into this by benefiting from your opponent's destruction as well? Let's just change it to, if a Tistina spell trap you control is destroyed while this card is in your graveyard. This would allow Sentinel's destruction to be a meaningful in-archetype extender if paired with Fallen to place the field spell. This is another situation of I can see what they were going for. The face-up Tistina spell traps were meant to be an overwhelming crystal domain. The field spell sending something every turn, breath setting something every turn, keeping the opponents in this cavern of ice and effects that should be threatening and demand removal. But now Fallen is in the graveyard, which punishes the opponent for removing them, but it has no reliable way of being represented in an actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Next is Returned of the Tistina, a level 2 fire aqua. If this
Return of the Tistina.
This card is in your hand. You can target 1 Tistina monster you control, except Returned of the Tistina. Special summon this card, and if you do, its level becomes that targeted monster's level. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 Aqua Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as a material. You can only use each effect of Returned of the Tistina once per turn. This card provides a unique branch of play into the archetype, I guess. All of the main deck monsters have different levels. Returned provides a branching line of play for the deck that allows for a wide array of Xyz summon options, theoretically allowing you to make rank 1s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 10s. Of course,
I know what's coming. I can't believe they did this.
I didn't say every number between 1 and 10 there, and there's a very important one that I skipped over, rank 2s. This card, it seems to almost be deliberately designed to not allow you to make totally awesome with
The archetype of aquas, and the only 2 can't be a 2!
it if you use it as an extender, which is fine. I just want to point it out as a personal gripe, I guess. If we're looking at the overall design choice, the goal is to be summoning Divinity as accessible as possible with this card. There are some trap cards that are meant to be set up alongside the Xyz, and the Xyz will resummon itself when destroyed, which allows Returned to reattach itself to Divinity as the game goes on, as it keeps summoning itself from the graveyard, so it keeps having a material, so that way it keeps allowing Divinity to float. I do think the card is kinda cool, but it really should have something that benefits the Aqua Xyz monster having it as a material with some sort of additional protection. It's kind of strange too, there aren't really a lot of Aqua Xyz monsters, so I don't know why the distinction is to make it so it can reattach to an Aqua, but let's just slap another little beneficial thing on here where if this card is a material for an Aqua Xyz monster, the Aqua Xyz can't be targeted by card effects. I think that's fine. The last main deck monster in this archetype's lineup is Tainted of the Tistina, and if there was any other card in contention for worst Tistina card, it would be this.
This person does not believe in Junk Trunk, all right? This was a Junk Trunk staple.
Tainted of the Tistina is a level 5 Dark Aqua with 2000 attack and 0 defense, which reads, you can tribute summon this card face up by tributing 1 face down monster your opponent controls. This card's level becomes 10 if it was normal summoned or set. If this card is sent to the graveyard, except from the field, you can target 1 Tistina monster you control. This turn, it can make a second attack during each battle phase, and you can only attack with 1 monster. This card got a QCR print. Danny bought me a
If you've ever seen the QCR of this, by the way, it's so funny. It's like, look at that, you can't read it!
a QCR Tainted of the Tistina as a gag gift, I guess. The idea is you have Breath with a light on board, you use Breath to set the opponent's monster, and then search
This
Tainted,
lets the Xyz OTK? Oh, get ready.
then you Tainted tribute over the opponent's monster that you just set. Then you overlay both for Divinity. Use Divinity's effect to boost 2/4K by detaching Tainted. The Tainted would then trigger to make Divinity attack twice, and then you would hit twice for 8K OTK. Hold on, I missed a detail there, didn't I? Divinity can only activate its effect for the 2K boost if it has Crystal God as a material. So in order to pull this hypothetical play off, you have to manufacture a game state where you summon Crystal God, then reserve one of your other normal summons to put Tainted on board. All of this hypothetical play needs to not be interacted with at all, and remember, you need to draw these cards to make this happen, not the Tainted or the Crystal God, because they can't facilitate this on their own. You need to draw the other cards in the deck. These cards are just engine requirements. While looking at the lineup of cards so far, there's this frustratingly clunky redundancy in how the designers wanted Tistina to close out the game. Crystal God can get summoned off the field spell if your opponent has 3 face-up cards, yet Breath and Demigod set monsters your opponent controls, which takes away from that overall face-up card count. Hound allows you to attack directly if your opponent has a set monster, but Divinity sends all the set cards, and Tainted tributes over a set monster. It's like this deck has 4 different OTK enablers, but with none of them actually facilitating a strong OTK plan. This is why I'm going to make Tainted a completely different card, right? I mean, obviously it needs to be. The card is awful in its current state. During the main phase, if this card is in your hand, quick effect, you can target 1 Tistina monster or 1 face-down card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. Then you can make this card's level become 10. Also, you cannot special summon from the hand or graveyard for the rest of the turn, except Tistina monster. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can banish this card from the field or your graveyard graveyard, the activated effect becomes destroy one face-up field spell your opponent controls.
Okay, this card's now fucking crazy.
You can only use this effect of Tainted of the Tistina once per turn. My goal with this redesign is to lean into one of the more interesting aspects of the deck, being Sentinel's ability to destroy your own cards, and to provide this deck with a seemingly obvious effect that it just never got in the archetype. I also don't think this would be overbearing, really, because there's no other effect negation anywhere in the archetype. So moving on to the spell in Wave 2, the spell, there's one spell in Wave 2, Play of the Tistina. It's a quick play that reads, special summon
This one's funny because it gets played. They're playing this card.
one Tistina monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, but return it to the hand during the end phase. You can only activate one Play of the Tistina per turn. How many times do I have to do the YouTuber, what do I even say? Oh my god, like, seriously, what do I say? A quick play spell that's Monster Reborn for the archetype. Cool! This is supposed to be something that either helps Tistina extend when going second, or can be set to put Crystal God on board during your opponent's turn to make Demigod live to activate its Karma Cannon effect. However, let's just think about a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the year of 2024. You have a face-up Demigod, a set Play of the Tistina, and a Crystal God in the graveyard. Your opponent begins to take actions, and during their combo, you activate Play to summon a Tistina from hand or grave. What incredibly strong non-engine monster do you think they will use to stop you from setting up your Karma Cannon effect here? That was played a lot in 2024. Look, to Play's credit, it doesn't target, so this can summon any Tistina monster during its resolution, but it is so painfully obvious what you would be going for here that the minute a Bestial monster enters your opponent's hand, the whole idea of this card is invalidated. And to rub salt in the wound, why does it have to bounce to hand during the end phase? It's clear here that the goal was to just summon Crystal God, so it's a detriment applied to a hard once per turn reborn effect for like no reason. Here's the redesign. Special summon one Tistina monster from your hand, graveyard, or banishment in defense position. Then, if the card was set before activation, you can special summon one Tistina monster from your hand, graveyard, or that is banished in defense position. You can only activate one Play of the Tistina per turn. This redesign allows the card to more consistently fulfill its purpose, remaining as an extender when you're pushing through boards or interruption, but it also facilitates the
So you
Demigod
can
interruption by
reuse
summoning
Tainted and tribute his second face down. Wait, that's genius!
both Crystal God and Demigod if you decide to set it on your first turn. Summoning from Banishment would also cure this deck from the curse of being hit by Bestials when released in the most Bestial format of all time. That's the only spell that was released for this deck in Wave 2, and I feel the need to remind you, Age of Overlord, Imseti, Dia Bellstar, Snake Eye Ash, but Tistina gets a once per turn reborn that returns to the hand in the end phase. Epic. The last two cards brought into the archetype are two trap cards. Looping back around to the point made in the early bits of this video, this did not help with Tistina's identity crisis, right? You have the field spell, which is like a board breaker, and then there's now, what, 3 trap cards in this deck? Let's just take a look at them. Discordance of the Tistina is a normal trap that states, activate one of these effects. If you control a Tistina monster, banish one card from your opponent's graveyard face down. If you control a Tistina monster special summon from the extra deck, banish all cards from your opponent's graveyard face down. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Tistina monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use one Discordance of the Tistina effect per turn, and only once that turn. Where is this effect coming from? I honestly don't get this one, but I'm hesitant
I like he's like, we didn't want this.
to change it because if you have it paired with the Xyz monster, you banish all cards from the graveyard face down. That's a pretty unique interruption. Banishing face down is like a really permanent form of removal in the game. So I guess if I'm going to make one change to it, I would like the graveyard effect to add a Tistina card from grave to hand. Obviously, that's such a simple improvement and not too creative of a patch or a redesign, but with Play being this card that you want to keep activated and bringing your Tistina cards back, it would be nice if this card allowed you to just get any Tistina spell trap rather than just a monster. We've come a long way, but we need to talk about the last card released for the Tistina archetype, a continuous trap, Embrace of the Tistina, which reads, when your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can target that monster, change it to face down defense position. During the end phase, you can target one face down defense position monster your opponent controls, take control of that monster. You can only use each effect of Embrace of the Tistina once per turn, and can only activate them while you control a Tistina monster with 3,000 or more defense. This deck has 3 trap cards in it. The only cards that meet the activation requirement for Embrace are Crystal God and Divinity. So you're expected to play this card in a going first Tistina strategy, which turbos out either the Xyz or Crystal God on your first turn, but you also need to reserve one of your searches for this, because there's no way you're playing more than one of this. Like, how would you ever set this card up? I'm trying to manufacture a world in which this card ever activates its effect. I have no idea. I do not know what they were thinking here. I just have to change this card completely. When your opponent activates a monster effect, you can change one monster your opponent controls to face down defense position, and if you do, negate that activated effect. During the end phase, you can target one face down defense position monster your opponent controls, take control of that monster. You can only use each effect of Embrace of the Tistina once per turn, and you can only activate them while you control a light Tistina monster. This makes it where it can chain to any monster effect and book any of those monsters, and provides the archetype some monster effect negation, which, again, nowhere else in the archetype, even after all the redesigns we've made, there's the replacement effect we gave to Tainted, but this is still unique within the archetype. I kind of like the face down defense position snatch stealing sort of thing. That's unique, right? So that's that. All of my redesigns for how Tistina could have looked if there was some more care and not so much fear in the balance of these cards. That's a point that I really want to lean into with this series as I look at these archetypes that didn't see a lot of success in the modern metagame and discuss some of the things like the overbalancing of the cards. A lot of the archetypes I love have those sort of really restrictive effects or very overbearing activation conditions that I just don't think that the archetype really needed, and that's a shame. Tistina is an archetype with beautiful art. I think Embrace is a gorgeous card. I think Tistina, the divinity that defies darkness, is again, a cool as hell name. It's a beautiful card. The summoning animation of Divinity is crazy. The archetype really had a lot of love and theming put into it, but it strays from that theming in such bizarre, strange ways. The good news is that Genesis format now exists, and I have been playing a Tistina deck in that format to pretty good success. I've played it on stream, where I actually did resolve the floating effect of Divinity a couple more times. I thought about it after I wrote the script, and that number I said earlier was actually not true if I included the Genesis format games. Yeah, I'm happy an environment exists now where these lower-powered and overbalanced decks can see some more play. Hopefully, I was able to keep the flavor of this deck alive whilst just removing some of those frustrating things from the archetype and allowing some of the tools to be more activatable within the deck. As we go on with the series, I'm actually going to involve you, the community, in my Discord to suggest edits to the archetypal cards, and I will shout you out. If I like some things about it, maybe I'll modify it a little bit if I think the design is a little too crazy, but either way, I'll still shout you out because this is a really cool thought experiment. I like looking at cards from an objective view, seeing why they didn't do so well in their competitive history, and then talking about it. Talking about card design is something that I have loved in my time with this game. The next one we're going to do is probably going to be something like Flame Swordsman. I'm going to start with some of my faves, and maybe I'll engage with the community more and start a Patreon where people can vote on which deck I do next. So if that's something you're interested in, sound off in the comments. And if you want to get involved in helping talk about how these archetypes could have been improved and patch them with me, join my Discord. It'll be in the description. So thanks, everybody. I look forward to doing the next one of these for you. Peace out.
This was really interesting. I liked this a great deal. Remember, we are liking the video. We are subscribing to the channel. We are sending a comment. It is just so funny the way Tistina works. Like the moment when he's talking about the different mechanisms by which the OTK can happen, I was like, I can't believe they did this, man. That's fucking unbelievable. That the deck works in this annoying ass way. Oh my god.
It's no secret to anyone.
Why are you linking it? We already have it pinned. Let's watch this though.